Welcome back to Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast. And of course, we see Brenda's smile, so that means our intro hit her.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Thank you.
I love it.
Well, thank you. Well, as you know, we have another amazing guest. And as we said, we're going to continue to share life experiences in hopes that someone is going to connect and start the journey. We're going to bring up Brenda just to tell you a little bit about herself. And as you know, City Seed is going to kick off that first question. Welcome, Brenda.
Hello, hello.
If you can come up and introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to kick off with the first question from Sid.
Sure. So my name is Brenda, and I have, I don't know how to introduce myself, but I'm currently a life coach. However, the first 30 years of my life were pretty traumatic. And at age 30, I had decided that I wasn't going to check out that way. So I decided to go on a journey of self-discovery and spent the last 29 years, quite frankly, working on myself and my own self-mastery. And for the past 8.5 years, I have been coaching others that have gone through similar, if not quite the same, traumas that I had, and helped them by using the things that I use to get out of their trauma. So today I'm a life coach, and I love it.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us this morning. We do always like to, start at the beginning. You did say, the first kind of 30 years of your life were, I would say, unsavory. So take us, from the beginning. Where did everything start? Your first kind of taste of trauma, turmoil. How was your home structure, family structure? You can start there.
Sure. So I'm Canadian. So on the east coast of Canada, the Atlantic coast, I lived with my mother and my father and my siblings. And my natural mother was very abusive and apparently was an alcoholic. I don't know if there's truth to that or not today. But I suppose the first traumatic experience that I actually remember is being one and being in my high chair and crying, and my sister saying, stop crying. And my mother was playing around at the stove with grease, making French fries or something. I don't know what she was doing. But anyways, I ended up with the grease all me. So I ended up burnt. And I do remember that episode. And I suppose now, because I understand it, it was so traumatic that it just kind of lodged in my mind. And from there, I ended up in the hospital for 100 days with burns all over me. And then my father left, and he took us 4 kids with him. And he was very young, of course. And then he met my stepmother on his way across the country to go move somewhere else where he could find work. And he met my stepmother, who, for some reason, I do not know what the reason was, disliked me. I was the baby, but she didn't like me. She liked the other 3, but not me. So I was, I don't know, I guess about 3 when I remember that starting to all happen with her, where she just didn't like me. So I lived with a stepmother who was abusive to me, for sure. And then during all of that, going on vacations and such, I seemed to be the target for all the abuse from everyone, from relatives who were looking to sexually abuse children. I believe the first time I remember being sexually abused, I was probably 4 by an uncle, and then several family members till I was actually 15. There was constant, but in between that, I ended up in foster care because my stepmother told my father that I had to go or she was going to go. And of course, my father didn't have the strength, I suppose, to pick me over her. So I had to go. So going into the foster care system was a nightmare. And lots of abuse there, different kinds of abuse, all kinds of different kinds of abuse there. And then when I was 15, I met somebody that I thought, oh, I'm going to escape the system and I'm going to go with this guy and I'm going to be all safe and shit because I was 15. So what did I know? Who ended up being the most violent human being on the planet. And so I spent some years with him in an extremely abusive domestic violence situation, and to the point where I was literally beaten to death 3 different times over those years and brought back to life. And the final straw was I had gotten 117 stitches in the back of my head from one of the last beatings. And so then I decided that, like, I'm out. Like, either he's going to kill me or I'm going to just try to get out of here because this is ridiculous. And I was young. And so I got out. And believe it or not, which is something that I suppose I should have said is off limits, but I guess it fits the story. There was an actual law enforcement officer that tried to help me stop him, but it didn't work out that way. I ended up getting sideswiped, and it didn't work out for me. It worked out for him. Anyway, so then I finally got away from him. I met a bunch of people. I was going to bars back then. So the bar, the dudes at the doorman or whatever they're called, they kind of protected me. There was like a family of brothers that worked at this bar that I went to all the time. So they protected me, and they went and stopped him from coming at me. I have no idea what they did, but I never heard from him again, ever. So then I ended up just kind of going to bars and being reckless and, making all the wrong choices like we do. And then I ended up meeting my husband, who was also abusive, of course, because that's who I attracted. And so I lived with him and had children, and went through another few years of domestic violence until I was 30. And this is all in a nutshell. Of course, there's lots of details to it, and I'm writing a book, so it'll all be in there. But when I was 30, I had actually decided that, and now wait, let me just segue back to that. The other part of this whole equation was I ended up back connected to my family, but they were all abusive. My sisters, my brother, everybody was abusive. So I was just completely surrounded with abuse. And my sisters would say things to me like, could it be everybody else, Brenda? Like, could it actually be everybody else? It must be you. And so I embodied that. There was something wrong with me. Excuse me. There was something wrong with me. I was unlovable. There's no way that all these people that are supposed to love me are all bad. It has to be me. I'm doing something wrong. But I was the one that loved school. I was a straight A student. I worked at my parents' store in the summer because I had no friends. Like, I was kind of not really a bad person. So I was fast forward to being 30 years old, and I just decided, okay, I'm out. I'm going to check out. I'm good, whatever. So I went, dropped my kids off at school, and I went to the Women's Crisis Center, which was the actual moment that changed my life. And I walked in the door and I said, I need someone to go to the school and pick up my children because I'm going to kill myself. And the nurse grabbed me by my arms. She spun me around and walked me right back out into the parking lot. And she said, you are not coming in this building, because if you do, 2 things are going to happen. Number 1, you're not going to die. And number 2, you're never going to see your children again. And I was broken, of course. I was broke down, and I was finished. I was defeated. So I decided, okay, I guess I'm not going. So I drove from that parking lot over to the college parking lot, and I said, I got to figure out what the hell is going on in my mind, because how am I like this? And I signed myself up to study psychology. And then I got on this journey of self-discovery and studied psychology. I said, I want to get my doctorate in psychology, but not because I want to be a psychologist, but because I want to understand the mind so well that whenever I meet anybody else in life that has suffered like I did and feel so unworthy and so unlovable, that I can help them to see the truth of who they really are. And so I did that. And then from then till now, it's been 29 years, actually. It's been quite a long time. So, but I did try, the working in the corporate world and going, but I found that I was still kind of attracting those narcissistic bosses. I had one boss that was trying to sexually assault me and stuff like that. I always found these kind of people that were always, I was drawing them to myself. And so I said, I'm out. I'm not doing this whole corporate world anymore because these people are whacked and I'm not doing it. And so I ended up, my current husband and I, we ended up with a granite countertop business, and we did that for 15 years. And then I was free. I had no one over me. I was working with the people. I got to talk to people all the time. I loved it. I loved to decorate. So I felt like I was in my element. But what I found, for some reason, because I was always still studying, taking courses, learning all the stuff about mind, energy work, what is all of this stuff, self-love and all this stuff, what is all this? And I was obsessed with it. I was like a sponge. So all the women that would come to me for their countertops, I'd end up coaching them, but didn't know I was coaching.
Mm-hmm.
They would come to me and they would start talking about their lives, and I was coaching them through things. And then when we decided to close the granite company, I didn't know what I was going to do. And a lot of customers said to me, you should be a coach. I said, oh my God, I'm not going to be a coach. Like, no, it's not who I am. I love decorating. I like construction. Like I'm not a coach. And so then I thought, oh, well, what the hell? I'll give it a whirl, because I wanted to stay home and not be controlled. I didn't want to be in that hierarchy situation where someone was controlling me. And so I went and studied, and it's 8.5 years later. And I'm telling you, honestly, I've never done anything more gratifying in my whole entire life, because when I started coaching, I was coaching people, and it was taking me like, 10 weeks, 3 months to get through, to break them into seeing who they really are, and to actually like letting go of all of that nonsense that goes on inside of us. But then what I've learned is that, and my mentors, my business coaches tell me, you need to stretch this out to 6 months or a year. You need to charge more money. And I'm like, why would you stretch something out and make people suffer for 6 months or a year when they've already been suffering for 25 freaking years? Like, no, I'm not into it. I know what to do because I've done it for 29 years and I healed from all of that stuff. And so I now coach like in a 6-week package. And by the 3rd week, I can see I got her. She's out. And now for the other 3 weeks, we just soar forward. And so for 6 weeks, it's like an literal, it doesn't even matter. It's like, it doesn't matter when people come to me and they're beaten down like I was when I was 30. And funny enough, honestly, probably the last 10 clients I've had have all been in their 30s, 31, 33, 34, all in that area, like where I was. And they all suffered similar upbringings, some not quite as bad as me, but still, right? Abuse and all that stuff. And it's funny that when they tell me, I'm like, I can tap in to the tools that I used for myself that worked. And so then that's how I kind of guide them through. And everyone's individual, of course, depending on how they related, what they made it mean, right? I mean, for me, the biggest thing would be, when my dad took me to that foster care place, and it was devastating. It was the most devastating thing I ever went through. But what I learned by being coached myself was that I made it mean that I was unlovable. I made it mean that no one loved me, and now I have to go in this foster care system. But what I learned was I could have made it mean, thank God I'm out of that dysfunctional family.
Yeah, because then you get out of that. Like it was an uncontrollable situation, but now I have to take accountability for my life. I'm going to catch you because I want to take it back a little bit, because the part we want the audience to see some of the things that you went through your childhood, and then when we get to the end, we're going to show all the amazing how you overcome and some strategy and techniques, so folks can just look at you and say, you know what, Brenda is a testimony, and everything that you have said to us is a testimony, because so many of us have been through it. And honestly, I was around my 30s when I started the journey, but I was in my 40s when I took control back over my life.
Nice.
So it's really it's interesting. I want to go back to your mother first. I want to ask, do you I think you mentioned in a blur that like pretty much you don't talk to your mother at all, correct?
No, which mother? The first one or the second? My real mother?
Your real mother.
I had gone back to meet her
Mm-hmm.
about 12 years ago. I drove to meet her, and I met her, and I forgave her for everything, because I don't necessarily know that the whole story was the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So, I forgave her and I set her free, but no, I don't have a relationship with her because I'm almost 60. It's over. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't. I have my own life, and I have children and grandchildren, and she has her own life, but I forgave her for sure. I did. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. And forgiveness is a part of that healing
Huge.
journey.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I want to jump into your stepmother real quick.
Hmm.
What are some of the forms of abuse that she did particular, and why didn't your dad stop her?
Well, she did not abuse me around my dad. My dad would be at work, of course, but things like, well, the mental part of it, I suppose, because there's mental and emotional and physical. So the mental part would be things like, you come home from school and you got a good mark, or you finished a project or whatever you did, and it was like just kind of dismissing, like, yeah, whatever, get out of here. Just, like, she didn't care. But my sisters and my brother would come in, and she would be like, oh, what did you do? So that would be like the mental abuse part of it. Um, physically, she would walk by, and she always had all these rings on her fingers, and she would walk by and backhand me in the mouth for no reason. Just, I'd be sitting tying my shoes or walking by or whatever, and she would just backhand me in the mouth and then tell me to go clean up before my father got home, sort of thing, if my mouth was bleeding or whatever. Um, Things like, we did chores on Saturdays. We all had chores to do. So I would, one time, for instance, I had the bathroom was my chore. So I went in to do the bathroom, and she came in, and I was finished, and I wanted to go out and play. And she picked up the can of Comet, and she shook it all over the entire bathroom in every crevice and said, I don't see a clean bathroom. Now get back in there and do it. And of course, it took me all day because it was in every crevice of the entire bathroom. So it was just kind of like constant, those types of things, or gifting. The others would get gifts and I wouldn't. Why my father didn't step in, I think that my father was broken himself, quite frankly, now that I understand the whole thing. And he didn't have the inner strength. He just thought that having a person in his life made him complete. He wasn't complete personally. I understand that now, but at the time I did not understand it. But I can tell you that when my father dropped me off at the children's aid, he was broken. He cried so hard. I never seen a man cry like that in my entire life since, ever. And he was devastated that he did that to me. But he didn't have the strength to let her go. And I had to forgive him too, of course, because I think he thought, because he was kind to us, and he, before you went to bed at night, he always kissed you good night, I love you. My dad was kind. So I think he thought that, like a lot of people do actually, they think their kids they're okay because they have one parent that loved them and one parent who doesn't, but so they're okay, but they're not okay. But you just don't understand that until you get older. Now, my father ended up dying when I was 20. He had a massive heart attack and he died. So that was another element that shook me, because he was the only person that actually did love me, I thought. So it was like, oh God, now he's gone, right? So that was another thing. But yeah, she was very much, I would say that the majority of it was constant berating, like, you're no good for nothing, you're fat, you're ugly, no one's ever going to want you, you're going to be a loser for the rest of your life, all that kind of stuff. And then the backhands were constant, always. We're getting, pulling your hair and smacking you in the mouth and all that kind of stuff. So, and we're talking about like back in the 70s, right? Because I'm almost 60. So before I went into foster care, that's kind of how it was with her. And I never rekindled with her.
Okay.
No, I did forgive her, but I didn't rekindle a relationship. So today, I don't, like, she'll message me a few times a year, and she's kind today. She's older, so she's kind. Hi, dear, happy birthday. And I'll say happy birthday, or thank you, Mom. Have a nice day. But I don't see her. She says, when you're in town, I wish you would come by for a coffee. And I go, well, not this time. Like, I'm not mean, because I've learned forgiveness, right? But I don't have a relationship. Forgiveness work is very specific to, doesn't mean that what you did was okay. I mean, you know what you're doing is wrong. And if you don't want to take it upon yourself to heal your own wounds, that's your problem. It's not my problem. So I'll forgive you for what you did for me. I'm going to do the forgiveness work for me. You can live with what you did on your own. That's not my place. That's your place.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do want to ask, just because I heard you mention initially, now when you were kind of giving up to foster care, I want to ask because I'm pretty sure probably Canadian laws is totally different, but you would think normally like if the child's parent is alive and well, you can't really escape the responsibility. There is no giving up the foster care. So how realistically did that work? Are there any legal reprimand for just giving up a child? Like, does he
No,
have
not
to
back then.
pay child stuff? Like, how does that situation work when it's just literally like, I don't want her, here you go?
That's exactly kind of what it was. And so my mother was best friends with her doctor, who was a crooked doctor to begin with, but she wrote a letter saying that I was out of control and all these things about me that weren't actually true, that I was not going to school. I was a straight A student. She wrote all these things about me, that they had tried all these different things. They had come to her with me, and I was just uncontrollable, and that she recommended that I go into foster care because they can't handle me. And that was it. I went.
And those are all things that can be verified, though. So
No, they don't
nobody
look.
took
They
the
didn't look
extra.
at me. No,
We can check school records. We can obviously you haven't
they
been in
didn't.
trouble. Like it's just her word type of thing.
Yep. Back in the day in Canada, you would not believe what they got away with. You would not believe what they got away
Wow.
with, because I left out a really important episode that had happened to me right before foster care, which will actually get you to understand how bad it is. When I was 13, I got raped. And from that rape, I was pregnant, but I didn't know that. Like, I had gotten raped by somebody who knew the family. And I never told anyone. I kept it to myself. And I did not know anything about pregnancy or anything. Like, I had pigtails and stretchy pants. Like, I was 13, in the 70s, 13. And so then my dad woke me up and said, I need you to pee in this bottle because I need to drop it off at the doctor's before I go to work. And I said, why? And he said, well, I think that you might be pregnant. And I said, I don't have sex. Like, I'm not pregnant, right? He goes, just do it. And so he must have saw my belly, or I was sick, or I don't even know the details, what made him realize it. But anyway, I was. And I was 6 months pregnant. And
with your family members, baby?
A friend of the family.
A friend? Did you tell someone?
No, I didn't tell anyone. And so then they put me in for an abortion, of course, because that's what you do with 13-year-olds who are promiscuous.
6 months.
6 months.
Mm-hmm. And when I was in there,
when
I was in the elevator on the bed going up to the room, this was probably one of the most traumatic things that happened to me. But they had pumped this big syringe. It was a really fat syringe into my stomach. And I was in the elevator. I was in excruciating pain. And my stepmother was in the elevator with us. And she looked at the nurses and said, make her suffer.
What?
Mm-hmm. And so they put me in a room with 3 women who had babies, like, the 4-bed room. And they strapped me to the bed. And these women had babies. They had little babies. And I was like this teenager with having an abortion, which I had to actually give birth to the abortion because it was a baby. And it was ridiculous. Anyway, I don't know how far I should go into that story, but
hey, this is Unfiltered Unspoken podcast. So
I know, and I guess it helps to say all the bad things. So when I had the baby, they showed me the baby and made sure that I knew what I had done. So that traumatized me. And then I guess I was bleeding out, and I remember waking up and there was a priest standing over me praying. My friend that I hung around with, whose mother didn't like our family because it was dysfunctional, her mother was there, and she was praying over me. She was very religious. And then I passed out again. And then there was a lady, catty corner, you guys say, across the room. And Jennifer, I never forget her, she had a baby and she was freaking out and calling the nurses and saying, you guys need to help her. Something's happening. I remember that clear as day. And then finally they all came in and kind of revived me and got me up. But no one came to visit me while I was in there. And I think I was in there for like over a week for sure. And no one came to visit me, but I made friends with this Jennifer lady, and she and I wrote back and forth for sure. I'm a story in her life for sure, because she really kind of tried to help me to realize the magnitude of what I'd just gone through was pretty horrific. And they picked me up from the hospital and drove me home and never said another thing. And then it wasn't very long after that they dropped me off at the Children's Aid.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to go in because now we're into the violation, the physical violation of being a young child.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, no one's accountable of it. But what we've learned on the podcast, personal experience, is that there are so many kids that are violated and it gets swept
Absolutely.
under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go back. So now we see that the first time that you were assaulted was 4 years old by a family member. So
Mm-hmm.
if we could start on how did this the violation of abuse start, and some of the things that you went through, and how the piece of the traumatizing piece when it started, because I can only imagine how it affected you. And
Yeah.
at 4, and I'm going to ask, this is another one, did you say anything?
Yes, I did. I told my mother.
The stepmother?
Yeah. But
and I can only imagine her
Yeah.
response.
Yeah, just be quiet and go outside and play. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing going on.
Was it one of her relatives?
Mm-hmm.
So it was her family member that did this to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was saying. Do you think that she was like literally giving them the green light to?
Well, what I found out since, like I should caveat this, but she grew up in a home with 18 sisters and brothers. She was sexually abused herself, and she went through traumatic life. Like her life was horrible. And so when I went back to do the forgiveness work for her, and I learned all these things, oh my God, I can't even imagine how broken she was. Doesn't make it okay. But I do understand today. I don't hate anyone.
Yeah.
I hate none of my abusers. They all had their own shit going on. I just happened to be the target because I was the weak one, I guess. I was like the open container. Come at me, I'll take it. Come at me, I'll take it. But today I don't hold resentment or anything towards her, because I realized how traumatized she was back then, and she was so young, But yeah, we used to go for vacations to drive across country to go to both my father's family and her family, and me and my two sisters would sleep in a bed together. We were all 1 year apart, and I was at the front of the bed, at the edge of the bed, so I was the target. So whenever he would come in the room, I was the one that was there, so I would be the one that would get it.
Did he touch any of your other sisters? Only
No.
you?
They rolled over and went to the wall. They knew, but they were little. We were little kids, right? We were like 4, 5, and 6. We were tiny. And,
but you were the baby.
Yeah.
So he violated you in front of your sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Every year that we went on vacation. I know it's not
Wow.
funny, but yeah.
No, it's not fun. Wow.
No. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you can't even get excited about the darn vacation.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. No. And there was throughout this whole time, there was other people, in the family and outside of the family that would do the same things it seemed, and later when we talk about my recovery, it seems that this was a pattern through my life, that I feel as though like I would pretend I was sleeping because I didn't want to be awake, because I knew it wasn't going to stop anyway. So I just would like pretend I was sleeping through all of it. No matter who it was that was abusing me, it was always, I would pretend I was sleeping all the way up to when I was 15, when it stopped.
So you suffered all of this pain from 4 to 15.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was like horrific. That's what I'm saying. Then at and then when I was 14 and I was in the foster care, the foster parents were probably one of the most abusive people I've ever met. And when I was in there, and they were violently abusive, like abusive, like beat us foster kids crazy. There was three of us, and then they had their own three kids, and their three kids were perfect, and us foster kids were the bad kids, of course. So we had to eat. We would have to set the table. It was ridiculous. We'd have to set the table up in the formal dining room for them, and then us foster children would have to go down into the basement and sit at a card table to eat our food, which was not the same as their food, I may add. And she was a violent little thing. She used to beat us with curling irons, and it was ludicrous. Like, she was crazy. And her kids would do things and steal things, and then they would say, "Oh, they did it. Oh, they did it." And she would just run with that, and then we would get the beatings and stuff like that. It was crazy. And when I went to report her, of course, right, I was saying to my worker, because you have a worker, I was saying, these people are crazy, like, they're beating us. And she beat Robert real bad one night, real bad, and I had to pull her off of him, and then I ended up getting it because she was really beating him. And they ended up telling me that there's nothing they can do because they were the head of the children's aid, this family that I lived with. And so the complaints would go to them. And I'm like, so I
Was
ran
this in
away.
Canada too?
Yeah.
Man, everybody thinks it's happening, like, because Canada pays for the child. They do support having kids,
No, they
but
don't actually. That's all misconception. It's not true.
that's a mess.
It's all a myth. And so then I ran away because I'm not staying here. This is ludicrous. I can't go home. I tried to go home. My stepmother said, "Yeah, come home," because I was out. I had run away, and I said, "I just want to come home. I'll be good. Just let me come home." And when I got there, she had already called the children's aid to come and get me and bring me back. She just lured me there so that I wouldn't run away. And then I ran away for good. And I said, "I'm out. Like, I'm not doing this. So I don't care where I live. I'll live on the street." I was 15 and a half when I went out on the street, and I've been out ever since. And
Now, just because me personally, I even when I'm over something, it's not over. Like, if I forgot about it, it's not over. Not until I feel like it's over. Now, did you ever? I know you went on, your forgiveness tour with your stepmom, but did you really ever ask her why? Like, have you ever gotten a explanation outside of just knowing what she'd been through? But I believe in meeting people where they are, and that's not always a positive thing. So if your language is violence, I can try to be fluent. So
right.
to me, it's like, how men kind of just sometimes they fight it out and then it's good. Like, I probably would have had to have one of those moments. Like, we have to fight, lady. Like,
well,
until I feel better.
Like, I definitely
has anything ever made you, has she cleared up anything, like,
no,
outside of just, forgiving her for your own sake?
No, I asked her many times, what was it about me that you didn't like me out of all of us, because I was the baby. So, like, who doesn't like a baby? Like, I didn't understand it. And she just said, I always loved all of my children equally. I've never not loved you. I don't know why you think this. And for me, I'm not really one, when I was on my journey, like, I had to forgive 33 people. There's a lot of healing that I had to do and some really deep stuff. And so I picked my battles. And so I decided that if I'm going to talk to you, and there have been some people that just sat down with me and said, "I'm so sorry for what I've done to you." And I liked those conversations because they were honest and they were raw, and but for the people that were in denial, you can't break that. You can't.
Did any of your abusers apologize?
Yes, absolutely. A couple of my family members absolutely did. Yeah, and I might add a little thing. Not all the abusers were men. There were women abusers, sexual abusers as well.
How many women?
Two.
2 women. So for a woman, I don't know. We talk about everything, and I don't know if you're comfortable, but I'm going to ask. How does another woman abuse a child
By trying
violating?
to get
Yeah.
their trying to get you to touch them in sexual ways. They want you to touch them.
Do they touch you in any
Well, you have to
ways?
be naked, and then then you have to touch them, which is probably more traumatizing because you're like, no, like, yeah,
Yeah.
not. And I was little, right? Like I think I was 7 or 8, around there when all that happened.
Did any of them
No,
apologize?
no,
So
no.
they're in denial about it.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't even. I think that when I write my book and I include all the details of everything we're talking about here, um, they will. I'm going to change names because I have to, because some of the people that actually turned out to be very lovely people and did apologize, and I have forgiven. I don't want them to suffer by anything I say in a book. So I'm changing names in my book so that I don't. But they will know who they are when I tell the story. They may not have their real name beside it, but they're going to know it was them. So when they read the book, which they will read the book because they know that they violated me, so they will read the book out of curiosity to see if they're in it. I'm sure of it. They will know it's them that I'm talking about.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And although, you did receive some apologies and accountability, was the, I guess, kind of the outcome or result of that, did that come at a later date? Because to be honest, to me, I don't know if I would have been in a place to accept that. Like, it probably would have been okay to hear, but like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's not. It was a conscious decision that you made. It's not like a mistake. I accidentally chipped your wall or
yeah,
cracked it
yeah.
to your car. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I think
how
that
did that apology
yeah,
actually sit? How did you take that?
the apology was, uh, they were unexpected. Like I had no clue that it was happening, and so it's just like, so I was because I'm non-confrontational. I had enough confrontation when I was in all the abusive relationships, so I'm not non-confrontational. So I was just accepting of it. Thank you for apologizing. I appreciate that. And then I had to process it. And don't get me wrong, for the first 6.5 years on my journey from 30 to 36 and a half, I saw a psychotherapist 3 times a week, every week for
Mm.
6.5 years, who's my friend today. And we work together actually. She's a psychologist. So we kind of work together with everything. And she kind of helped me through quite a bit, but she never really understood the emotional damage. So people can get in your head and tell you how to change your thoughts and all that shit, but if you can't regulate your emotions, you're going to be lost forever. And that's the big
Hmm.
problem with a lot of people when they go through this healing. So when I was working on emotions, because when I started to study how to take care of myself, I knew the mind. I'm an intelligent person, so I understood logically what had happened to me and how to deal with it. But I didn't understand how to manage emotions. I didn't understand how to manage that overpowering feeling of sadness and despair and anxiety and all of those things. I didn't understand emotion. So when I was studying, emotions was a huge part of my journey. So
Hmm.
when I learned, okay, well, I'm going to try this tool because they just triggered me. So I'm going to do, and I did, and I embodied everything I learned about emotional stability. And so I helped myself get through that, each one of them. But yes, absolutely, it took me off. I didn't just sit there and go, oh, yeah, no problem. No, I didn't. I cried and went through, you have to remember everything because now you just lived your life trying to forget everything. And I'm on this journey and now you're coming at me like this. And I sometimes believe that they came at me to apologize because they saw my growth. They saw me coming out of that. Like I was in deep into this ball of hell from every angle. There was no angle out. So when I came through, I went full pin. I didn't slow down at all. I literally like a sponge to find out how to get over all of this stuff because I needed to live a good life. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna jump out of this piece. First, I want to say thank you for your transparency. Because a lot of people need to hear this. I tell people it almost sounds like your stepmother's family had cult like things going on because similarity.
Yeah.
I what you're going through. I definitely
Well, I feel like as though we
understand.
have there's two ways, two uh, energies going on the earth, of course, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
God and there's evil. And so
Mm-hmm.
when people get sucked in by evil, or they do an evil act, and they do not know how to forgive themselves or get out of guilt for it, they just stay in that evil act, and they just keep going down the spiral of being a bad person because they don't know their
Mm-hmm.
way out. But then when so for me, I was raised in a Roman Catholic home, very, very religious, ridiculously, but there was shit that went on at the church too. And so I got away from God, and I didn't want anything to do with God. I was like, God. And my parents and my sisters and my brother were like, oh my gosh, you can't, la, 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 you can't talk like that. I'm like, listen, if there's an all loving God, this shit would not be happening. Like, this is ludicrous. And so I got completely away from God. So in my journey, I came back to God. And so now, but I do notice that people get into these spirals of evil takes over them, and they just keep spiraling down instead of saying, no, 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 and kind of finding their way, or finding a mentor, or finding someone to help them come back over to God, which I didn't have either. But I never got evil. I never got resentful. I never got vindictive. I never did anything to anybody to hurt them. So I just wanted to know God on my terms. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to go into a building and have some people that I didn't trust anymore
Yeah.
tell me what God was expecting of me. I'm going to figure this shit out on my own, and then I'll have my own relationship with God. So,
I agree with you. And I went through some similar stuff. It had me, I always believed in God, but it had me questioning faith within the church. Like, why are all these things? I
yeah,
learned all the bad habits from the church.
yeah.
But I want to ask you really quick, because I want to jump into when you were a 15 and you ran away.
Mhm.
You said in the intro that you got into and ran away, but it ended up in an abusive 4-year relationship that led you to 117 stitches.
Mhm.
If you can tell us, like, what happened with you running away, and how did the abuse start, and some of the of abuse that you went
Um,
through in that
yeah.
relationship?
So when I ran away and I went back home, my mother had called the Children's Aid to come and get me. So they brought me back, but I didn't. I said, I'm not going back to that foster home, and if you take me back, I'm going to continue to run away every single day because I'm not
Mm-hmm.
living there. It's over. I'm done there. So they put me into what they call I don't know what it is, kind of like a transition house where you stay here till we find you a new place. But this place, the lady, Helen, was amazing. She was amazing. She had all these biker friends. They were like big burly bikers. They would scare anybody, but they loved us girls that were in the house. They were so kind to us. There was no abuse there. It was like such a safe place, but I wasn't allowed to stay there. I was only allowed to stay there till they found a place. So I told her, I'm not going back. Like, I'm not. If they put me back, I'll stay here. I'll stay here and I'll go to school and I'll do all the right things, but I'm not going back into one of those homes. I'm not doing it. And she said, she actually helped me stay out. I was 15 and a half. She helped me stay out. She helped me to find a little attic apartment on top of a house, get on social student welfare. And she just said, just go. And then because of the time of the year, I was before I was 16, but it was by the time they chased me down and I run away again, and they chased me down and I run away again, my birthday will come and I'll be free. So she said she will talk to them and say, just loosen up and let her go. She's not coming back. And so they did. And so I went out on my own. And I did go to school. And I met this, one of my girlfriend's boyfriend. It was his brother. And so she introduced me to him, and we all went out for a drive in the car. And of course, you're young and you're like, oh yeah, he's perfect. And we started dating, and I had this little apartment up on top of this house, and I was young, so I was cool because I had my own apartment sort of thing. And he came there, and the abuse started right away. He punched me in the face and said that it was an accident. And when I think back now, I'm like, what the hell? But he didn't mean it, and I forgave him. And I shouldn't have. If I had stopped it right there, I would have had totally different experience for the next few years. But instead, I had a very, very violent next few years, to the point where you even breathe the wrong way. You don't make eye movement the wrong way. You don't say a word the wrong way. Like everything was consistent, ongoing, nonstop, violent beatings every day, like every day. And so that led up to, and for stupid things, they didn't make sense. And then the last day was the day that I was making a shake. I'll tell you the story. It's so ridiculous. I was making a shake and I had put milk in it, and he apparently wanted pineapple juice in it, and I put milk in it. And he said, I told you I didn't want milk in it, and you didn't listen. And I was standing across the kitchen, and there was a 33% more Lysol can on the fridge, and he picked that can up and he drilled it, and I spun my head around so it didn't hit my face, and it rolled around my head and cut my head open. And then I fell down to the ground, of course, and I was bleeding because your head bleeds quite a bit. And I couldn't see, I was blind. And I said, call my sister. And she came, and we went to the hospital, and the guy in the emergency room said, the next time I see you, you're probably going to be dead, because I was going to the same hospital all the time with all the things. And that's when I just decided, I'm leaving. And if you're going to kill me, then kill me, but I'm going to try to leave, because I ain't staying in this anymore. And so and he did. He got at me a few times after I left, and then that group of doormen at that bar, I don't know what they did, but he never bothered me again.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great. That sounds like what you needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were
I
safe.
do like that, because people do have negative connotations with biker clubs, but they do their thing sometimes.
Yeah,
and I can only imagine what they did to him too.
They said, and people say to me often, oh, well, they probably, wanted to take you out and stuff. Not one of those men, not one asked me out on a date. Not one of them flirted with me. It was sincere, genuine, caring people, and they took care of me. I could go to that bar all the time, and I knew that I could just be free and nobody would bother me, and I could dance, because I wasn't allowed to dance. You're not allowed to wear makeup. You're not allowed to do your hair. When I was in the abusive relationship, there was nothing. Stay in the house, the end. And so I was young, 19, 20 years old by the time I escaped that situation. So I was like, I'm just going to go have some fun for a little while, kind of thing. So, but they were genuine people. There was nothing like that going on behind the scenes or anything. They didn't do it for any ulterior motive other than just to protect me. So
that's wonderful. That's wonderful to hear. Yeah. Now, tell us a little bit about your kind of trajectory into, being a life coach. Was there, like a particular epiphany moment, or, just kind of a sign that lets you know this is what you should be doing? How did you kind of transition into that?
Well, like I was saying earlier, when I was in the granite business, I made friends with everybody, all the customers, right? Because I'm in their house and I'm decorating, so we're friendly. And they would tell me stuff that was going on in their lives, and I was using what I had learned and what I had studied to help. Well, have you ever tried this? And have you ever tried that? And it was helping them. And I'm really very much against relationship breakups. If they're savable, like if the reason that people want to break up a relationship is because you're unhealed and you're unhealed, I don't like to focus on that. I like to focus on, let's heal you. And if this relationship is meant to be with you, it will. And if it's meant to fade away, it'll fade away without trauma and dysfunction and chaos and fighting and screaming and all that stuff. How about if we just focus on you? So when I would talk to customers, they would often want, oh, my husband's this and my husband's that, and they would want to break up. And I'd say, well, why don't we just not talk about your husband? How about if we just focus on you, and let's see if we can empower you to be who you really are. And then from there, if he fits the profile, then he'll be there. And if he doesn't, he'll fade all the way on his own. You don't have to go in. And then you're going to be, because I was kind of using my own history of going from relationship to relationship unhealed. So you're just going to keep drawing to you the same stuff. It's never going to change unless you heal. So I was kind of helping them do that. And then, like I say, when we closed the company and people were saying, you should be a coach. I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to be a coach. And then I started to study, and I took the courses and I did what I had to do. And then but I never stopped coaching. Even when I was going to school, before I was even certified coach, I was still coaching. I just started to charge money, which felt really uncomfortable, because I was like, I don't know if I really am a coach. but I was getting results for people. So then I hired my own coach to help me be okay with charging money because I was actually getting people results, and to identify that and to see that. So then I kind of grew into who I am today, which is I definitely help people for sure. And I have a very good model that I like, a structure that I go through. And because I had so many different forms of abuse happen to me in so many different depths, when people come to me, I can personally relate to so much of the story, because I kind of experienced a lot of things in my life. And so it's like I can actually feel what you feel. I can feel what you're doing. So then when I say, what did I do to help myself? Oh, try this, because it worked for me. And then they try it and go, oh my God, I feel so much better. And then you're like, yes. You know, because you're actually helping people. So yeah, so I guess I just transitioned right out of granite into coaching. Really kind of how it happened. Yeah.
So you have a 30-minute free coaching session. Since
Yes.
you're chatting about it,
Mm-hmm.
how can in that 30-minute session, what are you introducing, just to get the audience to take advantage of that?
Yeah.
How can you help them within that 30 minutes of free time?
So what I do is, prior to the call, I ask through email, I have a list of questions that I ask so that I can be prepared to help them, because I don't want to get on the call and then 30 minutes is over and we haven't even touched what you're struggling with. So I get the struggle ahead of time so that I know what I'm going into, so that I spend the whole 30 minutes actually helping. And I don't do these calls to get sales. I do get sales from them sometimes, but mostly, honestly, my clients come from referrals. I don't really get them through these calls. I do these truthfully from my heart, that I want to give back and I want to help people. And so I do a lot of 30-minute free calls, and I don't get clients from them. So I ask people ahead of time to tell me your story. Just brain dump, I call it. Send me an email and just don't stop typing until everything that's bothering you right now, everything that's going on in your life right now has happened. Get it in an email. Now, I know you when I read that email. I got it and I got you. So then when I get them on the call, I can help them. And sometimes, not as many as referrals, but sometimes people will say, how do I work with you? I'd like to take this further. Then, of course, you become a client and that sort of thing. But for the most part, I really just genuinely want to give back. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And what, outside of your, the 30-minute session, what kind of other, services do you offer, or what kind of is the roadmap after the 30-minute consultation that you suggest?
Yeah. So I work with people for 6 weeks at a time. I don't do one-offs because I don't believe you can get a transformation in an hour and a half. I do 90-minute calls for 6 weeks in a row, and I definitely help people to transform their lives and come back to who they really are in that 6 weeks. But what I'm doing right now, what I'm really excited about is because I can only coach so many people one-on-one, because I really pour myself into it. And between my calls, I'm available on Messenger to all my clients, so that when they're struggling between our calls, they can reach out to me and I can help walk them through things. So it's not like 90 minutes every week and then, okay, see you next week. Good luck to you. I'm always available so I can only do so many, because I really hold space for people, and I want to be of value. So what I've created right now, which I'm going to be launching in 2 weeks, is a program that it's called The Shift, and it's to shift people out of what I call the loop of doom, where you're living this life and you're repeating the same shit over and over again, and you have like getting up, and it's like every morning and every night you wake up, you brush your teeth, you go to work, you get home, feed the kids, go to have a bath, go to bed. It's the same loop of doom, and you have no sense of purpose, no excitement, no happiness in your life, and but they can't afford to do one-on-one coaching. So what I've created is a program called The Shift, and it's an email program that comes for 21 days. It's a 21-day shift, and every morning there'll be a video from me, a live video, and a PDF for the notebook, or you can just use a notebook. You don't need to download it, but if you can. And then it's going to shift you and stack all these little shifts over a 21-day period to shift you out of that world and into who you really are and back into alignment with who you really are and your connection to God. Because what's happened is we are all spiritual beings and we all are love, pure love and light. We really are. But our life has created these characters that we are that are suffering, and we're all suffering. So if we could shift people out of suffering and into happiness and inner peace, then they have the ability to make daily choices that is going to take them to where they want to be in their life. Because people don't even know where they want to be in their life. They're just trying to swim around in this loop of doom all the time. So it's a 21-day journey out of that and into who you really are. So that is what I'm creating right now, and I'm launching in a couple of weeks so that anybody can afford it. And then it's 21 days in your email. It takes you less than 25 minutes a morning. Get up 25 minutes earlier, make yourself a coffee and do it. And then stack every single shift I give you every single day for 21 days, and your life will shift out. Mm-hmm.
All right. I love it. I love it. And thank you for doing all the positive work. And, we all have similar things where we take life experiences just from ourselves in hopes that it will help someone else through the journey. We have very similar platforms, and, it's good to see folks. Some people let their traumas take them under, and some of us allow our traumas to excel us and to help so many. So it's a beautiful thing to see so many platforms trying to help others overcome their traumas. So we're almost at time. I wanted to ask if you can give the audience advice on ways that helped you start your journey to healing, which may help them start their journey to healing.
I think really, in order to begin a journey, you have to surround yourself with people, whether it's online or whether it's one person at a time, that are on a journey. Because oftentimes when we're in a loop of doom, the people that we're around are the same. They're in the loop of doom as well. So you have to find an avenue, whether it's a Facebook group or somewhere that you can go, if it's a craft or whatever. And actually, the first thing that we all have to do is become the observer. We have to become the observer of the behaviors of other people. We have to also become the observer of the triggers within inside of ourselves. And if we get triggered and we have an emotional response, all of a sudden, we have to actually become the observer and say, what's triggering me? What is happening? Why is this always bothering me? Because in healing work, it's the feelings that we're trying to overcome. It's not our thoughts, because all of us are logical and all of us can say, yeah, I get it. I don't want to be in an abusive relationship. I don't want to go through this shit. I want to change my life. But for some reason, the emotions are overpowering enough that they keep us in this loop, because if you stay in the loop, you don't have the feeling. So it's like a thing. So you have to become the observer of what's going on, and then learn techniques on how to address those feelings. Breath work is magic. People think it's stupid, but it's actual magic. Put 5 alarms in your phone through the day that every time it goes off, you breathe. The 4-2-4 breath work is the easiest one. You breathe in for 4, hold for 2, out for 4. It calms your nervous system down immediately so that you can look at the situation you're in from a different perspective, because you can't look at it when you're all stressed out and your nervous system's all out of whack and make a conscious choice to change for the better. It's not going to happen. So you have to bring your nervous system down to calm so that you can go, oh yeah, I see what's going on here. And you can kind of look around and make a different choice. There's so much to it though. You have to really unpack it all, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Now for our last question here, or not question, but correspondence, I should say. We call this shameless plug. You do have your banner rolling across the bottom. Please let our viewers know anything you have working, anything you want traffic drawn to, anything you have for sale, any appearances, anything that you can do to sell yourself right now. You have the floor.
Mm. Well, I'm not really selling. The only thing is I would say keep your eye open for the shift. If people are interested in the shift, I think it would be the best bet. And the 30-minute call, honestly, is not a sales call. So I really would reach out to people who are struggling and say, please book a call. And when the shift comes out, if you're ready to actually make changes in your life and you really have a dream of the way you want your life to be, but it just seems so unreachable and so unattainable, I promise you that this shift is going to shift you. I've taken all of my best work and I'm shrinking it down into a 21-day transformational period for not a lot of money. And everybody can benefit from that. So if you want that, you can just email me or come on my website and send me an email and say, please put me on the list for that. And I will send it to you as soon as it comes out. Those would be the things. Like if you want to cut on a free call and then buy the shift, that's fine. If you want to just wait for the shift, but I would say the free call and the shift would be, unless of course you want to do a 6-week program, work with me one-on-one, then of course you can message me about that. But truthfully, I think if you want to do the free 30 minutes of the shift would be a really super beneficial thing for majority of people.
Okay. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Geez, we couldn't even get to the second half. Your story, your life experience is so
That's okay.
powerful. But we want to thank you. It's an honor to have you as a guest on
Thank
Unfiltered
you.
Unspoken Podcast.
Thank
So we
you.
want to, my pleasure. So everyone, thank Brenda. I hope that you took something from her testimony. And if you're going through what she is going through, even through the struggling stages, not understanding what you're going through, we hope that Brenda's testimony will bring transparency to things that you are dealing with in life. And
Mhm.
hopefully, her testimony will help you start the journey to healing. We want to thank you again for tuning into Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we are going to continue to bring life experiences. And we will see you soon.